And he's done it with an unreturned serve. Jack Draper is into round 4 at the French Open, knocking out Joao Fonseca in straight sets. Was just too good for Joao today. 6-2, 6-4, 6-2. Pretty comfortable looking scoreline. I guess it was pretty comfortable in the end for the Brit. Jake here suggesting a disappointing result. Well, disappointing if you want to see a competitive match, that's for sure. Disappointing if you are supporting the Brazilian, but of course not disappointing if you want to see Jack Draper go far in this competition. Just couldn't lay a glove on the... For me, what were the differences today? Well, the drop shot was killing Joao far too often from Jack. His inability to deal with the Jack serve. Blatantly obvious from the fact that he got 2 break points in the entire match. Could barely get to deuce on the Jack serve. Jack applauding Joao off the court. Let's see how Joao does on the grass. It's a surface that I think Jack also excels on, but Jack for now will stay on the clay. The Parisian clay as he goes into round 4. Some Brazilian flags there held aloft, but maybe not with the same excitement as they did an hour and a half or so ago, because Joao Fonseca is out and Jack Draper is through. And then he said Jack Fonseca is through there. Jack Draper, yeah, looking good on the clay. The lefty-righty combo as well. I think Fonseca, on the chances he did have to attack, was too often going into the forehand of Jack, particularly in sets 1 and 2. If there was a moment where Joao could have really got back into this match, it was when he did have those 2 break points as Jack was serving for the second set. And Joao was on the attack during one of those break point opportunities, and he just went too long. He breaks there, he gets to 5-all, he makes the second set a fight. And by that, he just extends the match, because I think Jack was struggling physically as well. Joao, too, though, didn't change his position. Maybe should have hugged the baseline a bit more than he did, because Jack was killing him on the drop shot, and they weren't even the best drop shots you've ever seen. But Joao was just too far off the baseline, too far off the match. And in the end, it is Joao Fonseca who prevails. Let's have a quick look at the Twitter sphere to see what has been going on. Let's have a look. Gross here has been tweeting, given the explosiveness of the Fonseca discourse, always useful to put his age into historical context. I think I can hear Damian joining. Just bring yourself forward as and when. Damian, you can. Yeah, given the explosiveness of the Fonseca discourse, it was useful to put his age in historical context. In this century, it's been quite rare for 18-year-olds to make the third round. 4 of the previous 6 slams. Only one man has made an earnest run. The guy's footprint is on the court indeed. I don't know if Damian is joining by phone or by laptop. I can bring you forward, Damian. His device is not connected at the moment, but he'll be with us in a second to share his thoughts on this encounter. Let's have a quick look at some of the stats. The most important stat, of course, is that Jack Draper has prevailed in straight sets 6-2, 6-4, 6-2. But regarding the match itself, 8-6 aces in favor of Jack. Double faults, though. 4 off the racket of Jack and 0 off the racket of Joao. Maybe he should have been a bit more aggressive on that second serve, where Joao was only able to win 36% of his second serve points. Remember, a huge stat as well for me was that he could only garner 2 break points in the entire match. Hi, Damian. At least I can maybe hear you audio.
I hope you will.
Yeah, I can hear you. That's enough.
Yeah, I'm struggling with some, like, everything basically happened last minute. But yeah, if you can hear me, that's okay.
Yeah, we don't need to see you. We can hear you loud and clear. What are your thoughts on this encounter?
Yeah, I mean, this was like kind of like the harsh version of the match that we expected yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, basically Joao brought exactly the same things as in Indian Wells. It wasn't enough. I think his like recognition of the patterns that were burning him was rough. Couldn't read the Draper drop shot. Was like all the time was just slamming into the Draper forehand, and everything was just coming back. And you know, it seemed like to make zero impact. He didn't really have any other ideas, and Jack was just a well-oiled machine. There was maybe that one little moment, right, when his hand gets a bit shaky on that pass, 5-4 fairly all, and then also the
Hmm.
double faulted deuce. But after that was gone, I mean, yeah, it was looking like bagel territory again between them.
Gilgross here just tweeting Draper was a grinder who needed to develop his weapons. He has done so. Fonseca is a powerhouse who needs to develop his grinding. I think if
I mean, Gil did not watch Jack Draper when he was 17, 18. Jack
go on.
Draper was just a lefty massive hitter at first. He
Yeah,
developed his grinding over time, definitely.
yeah. I thought today, if Zhao was barely able to lay a glove on the Jack Draper serve, if he could have lengthened that match somehow, I don't think Jack was in a great condition in that third set either. But gets the two breaks to serve, and that's easily enough in the tank, especially when he's serving so well.
Yeah, I mean, I saw somebody tweeting about signs that Draper might not be able to go five, but first you have to push him there.
Yeah.
So obviously this didn't really matter in the long run here. Fonseca also, I would have doubted him physically, right? If this went really long, he hasn't really played matches like this. So I think, yeah, it wasn't really going to play a big part today, especially with the conditions being pretty hot, warm. So obviously the speed of play was pretty fast. Yeah, not much that Fonseca could have looked at. I do question the quality of his, well, at least, the coaching for this particular matchup that he has received, because we really just saw him doing exactly the same things as in
Yeah.
Indian Wells. But this is stuff you need to learn basically. There's like much experience and basically knowing how to pace yourself, how to use your assets in the most in the greatest possible manner. Like that's things that you need to learn. The talent is there. It's just a shame for him, I guess, that it was a pretty harsh defeat. It was definitely one of the worst possible outcomes for him today. I think there wasn't much of an option for the match to be even easier for Drag.
No, I mean, could Zhao have done something different, as in like maybe hug the baseline a bit more, read the drop shot, or anticipate it a bit more? Maybe even anticipate some of those serves that seem to go to the backhand 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were a bigger issue in Indian Wells still. Outside to the Fonseca backhand, like that was just ruining him there. Today, maybe not so much, but in the end, he didn't break serve, so I suppose that's, well, it's not exactly that much in terms of progress, but yeah, I do think that definitely there was more, especially in terms of his approach, not trying to go after the same forehand to forehand pattern, like down the middle with the 250 forehand, maybe throw in some of his drop shots, maybe try to open up the court with an angle, read the drop shots. Yeah, I mean, so many points where he actually, I think, was trying to do something and gets into a bit of a slice rally with Draper, but then it's just
Mhm.
completely stunned when Jack throws in the dropper and is 2 meters behind the baseline. One of these he actually won, that rally that I mentioned when Jack's hand is a little shaky on the pass. That was
Uh-huh.
one where Fonseca was also 3 meters behind the baseline. Like he was just lucky that he was even in the point to begin with, because again he was not reading what Jack was going to do at all. So
I mean,
yeah,
the drop shots weren't even that great, I don't think. Some of them were like landing on the service line, and yeah, he was just way too off it.
yeah, he's just not even making an attempt, because
No.
his balance is completely messed up. It's impossible for him to even start running there. So yeah, I mean, I obviously don't think this is like some sort of a pessimistic, horrible match for Fonseca. It's a stepping stone. He still had a decent event, to be honest.
Yeah,
Like my expectations going into this Roland Garros were much worse than what we
yeah.
actually saw from him. Maybe not today, but in the previous two rounds, especially against Hurkacz. So it's really not that bad. And it's just, more things to think about going forward. Definitely Draper has given him two of the toughest lessons so far. And I think what some people have said, like, for example, James in his tweet, that, there are still, that this is a big lesson for Fonseca. There are still levels to the game. Like, that's not really what it is about, no? I mean, it's not about the tools, but more application. And yeah, I mean that's what you just can learn only through one thing: experience.
Regarding Jack, actually, I know it is a bit of a casual observation, but there were some sort of there's a couple of things today that just I kept seeing Rafa Nadal there. First of all, actually those drop shots are Rafa Nadal-esque in terms of the height, which it goes over the net. And yeah, it was a great tactic for Jack to deploy today. But as I say, I think that it wasn't always well executed, but it didn't have to be. And I've seen Rafa do some drop shots on that lefty, and they sort of loop over the net. And I'm thinking, if only Novak was a little bit closer to it, because I remember the 2022 quarterfinal where Novak just wasn't chasing some of those drop shots down, even though they could have been. The second thing was the inside out today. Right-handed forehand from Joao so often, of course, was just obviously going into the forehand of Jack, and Jack was just patting it back down the line, and it was just like watching Rafa against people trying to attack his forehand on the left-hand side.
I don't understand why he was doing that. I think the
Should
whole
have gone
duration
line.
of the match.
Should have gone line more often.
Yes, I think the whole duration of the match when he was sure Draper's backhand is more like stable, solid shot.
Yes.
But the
Yes.
entire duration of the match when he was approaching to that wing, he was actually able to get a decent volley out of it and
Yeah.
not be burned by that. I do think that this was like a complete, inability to recognize that this is not working, that this pattern is just not good for him in any shape or form. Also, that's the wing where Draper can like add a lot of height to it, add a lot of spin to it. So that's yet another reason I think to avoid it if you're Fonseca and kind of want to play this, very snappily, just fast paced off the ground. So I don't understand why every single forehand needed to be either into the forehand corner of Draper or into the middle maybe, but like very rarely you would see Fonseca going for inside in. And I'm not saying for like a winner. Yes, when he opened up the court, sure, he had a few, but just as a regular pattern to like build up the point, it was clear he was very intent on trying to break down the Draper forehand, and that was just failing on all possible, areas.
Going forward for Draper, the draw not bad. He's obviously going to be playing Bublik or Rocha in the fourth round, of which he would be the favourite. And then, whose quarter would you like to be in? You wouldn't want to be in Yannick's or Carlos's. So Zverev, quarterfinal, possibly. Of course, it does depend on Zverev coming through both Kaboli today and then Griekspoor. So there's a semi-final there for Jack, which would be a phenomenal tournament for him, whatever happens beyond that.
Something ain't working out for me there, because where is Novak in this whole thing?
What if I said something wrong? Oh no, sorry, I have got something wrong. I've got him in the wrong quarter. Just scratch everything I just said. He's on course to play Yannick in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, that's exactly
I've
it.
misjudged.
Yeah, I was confused because like I wasn't sure, to be honest with you, where Draper was. I didn't even remember, but
No,
something wasn't working out there, because if he's in the Zverev quarter, then Djokovic would have to be there as well. But
Yeah.
he's in the second section, if you may, if we're splitting the draws into eights. And I mean, Yannick in the quarters, I don't know.
Yeah.
Would it be, a very, well, potentially the first challenge on Yannick's route? I think so. Fourth round is Bublik Rocha, right? So
that's
obviously
nice.
only Bublik there, I think, is a threat. And that's also taking into consideration that Bublik would have to play like insane tennis for 3 more sets, which he was able to against de Minaur, but we don't really know if even today he's going to be able to maintain it. So it's looking good for the quarters at least. And then you obviously at some point have to run into either Sinner or Alcaraz. So that's kind of like for all the players in this event outside of Sinner and Alcaraz, I think the biggest goal has to be to get to where you would actually play them, and then just roll the dice, just see what happens, and maybe you will actually come out the victor. I think Draper is definitely among the players who would have some sort of a chance against either of these two.
Yeah. I do think that ultimately his undoing at this tournament might well be a physical. I mean, it might be levels as well. Talking of levels, let's do that same tweet again if he goes out in straight sets to Yannick. But
I'm gonna come back and retweet it. Yeah,
just retweet it and just write Yannick straight sets over. Quote tweet it if you like. But I do think as well that there's two things. First of all, levels, and then secondly, I do think that if he goes 4 or 5. Actually, if he goes 4 or 5 with Yannick, maybe Yannick will falter too, and that might give Jack a chance. But if he goes 4 or 5 with Carlos, or if he'd gone 4 or 5 today, I agree with you that Joao wasn't 100% either. But I think the thing for Joao as well is, one of those things that you would say if your opponent is struggling physically is, all right, maybe lengthen the rallies. But that wasn't doing Joao any favors either today. When it was going over 4 or 5 shots, I also fancied Jack to win pretty much every one of those rallies today.
Yeah, I mean, even in terms of like physical development, Fonseca is still, has ways to go, I think. And you can see it when, like, yeah, they're just gonna just start playing super heavy shots from corner to corner. He's not gonna be scrambling around like he's Yannick Sinner, even though very often we compare them in terms of like having pretty similar footwork patterns and kind of, moving in this very modern post Djokovic tennis, men's tennis type of way. But of course, Fonseca still has, like, even his body has to grow to actually be able to be effective at that. So yeah, I do think for now at least he has to stay pretty offensive. When he was trying to fall back a little on second serve return, it also wasn't working out too well for him. So today I think it was going to be very tough for Joao to do anything about like that physically. I'm not really sure he's stronger than Jack, even though historically Draper isn't the fittest, I suppose. And maybe it will be his undoing as we go later into the event, but so far we haven't seen any indication of that. He's moving along at a decent pace, not wasting too much energy, even though he's lost 2 sets. So I think if it comes to that Sinner Draper quarterfinal, physicality might come into play in like the fourth or fifth set, but also nobody knows for which player. Both of them are like similarly, volatile in that respect.
Indeed. Thanks, Damian. I'm going to click remove, if you don't mind, because we're just
Of
going to
course.
hear. Yeah, no problem. Because we're going to hear from Jack Draper now to hear his reflections on the match. And yeah, we'll probably finish with Jack's words. In the meantime, do hit that like button. And of course, if you are new to the channel, hit subscribe as I find this. This is Elise Cornet speaking to Jack Draper post-match. We've got the German translation. Yep. Physical condition team. First set was key, as Jack said, the conditions. I think he was getting affected actually a little bit towards the end there, but it was too little, too late regarding Joao Fonseca. Today, Jack Draper moves on where he awaits Rocha and Bublik. It's looking like Bublik, but who knows? There, but yeah, it's just confirmed. Joao Fonseca or Jack Draper has beaten Joao Fonseca 6-2, 6-4, 6-2. Jack moves on to round four. Joao Fonseca will have to dust himself down and get ready for the grass. Thanks for everyone for tuning in, and you know the drill.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.